So, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Our program will now begin. My name is Phumsiri Damrongwood, Vice Dean at the Faculty of Law, Chulalongkorn University. I will be your MC today. It's very wonderful to see many of you today, many familiar faces, but also new friends in person. I also like to welcome everyone joining us via our Facebook page live stream. To start, it's my honor to invite Professor Dan Pushnik from Singapore Management Universities and ECGI to deliver the ACLF address. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a true honor and pleasure to be here today. I want to start by thanking President Pritiwat, my dear friend Dean Parina, and Phumsiri, who is also another dear friend. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Vivian Chen, who is the co-director with me and Phumsiri of the Asian Corporate Law Forum, as they've helped to bring this together. In 2023, when we got together in Singapore, it just seemed like an idea that the Asian Corporate Law Forum would become something in the future. 10 institutions got together, or 10 faculties got together, with the idea that there was a missing voice in the leading discourse for corporate law and governance around the world. I would say there was not only a missing voice, but there were missing voices. We hear a lot about the American view, the UK view. In fact, this is co-sponsored by the European Corporate Governance Institute. But it shows how this institute has become global. And it shows how there was a missing voice. And that missing voice is the multiple voices from Asia. Asia, of course, is a place that sometimes people even struggle to define. And that is not a surprise. With close to 5 billion people now, around 50 countries, with over 2,000 languages spoken, one thing that defines Asia is its diversity. But through diversity, there is extreme richness in what we can learn. And so in 2023, when we got together, and I have to thank all of the founding institutions, we had this idea, and the idea became a reality at Singapore Management University, the Ang Pang Hau School of Law, last year when we had the inaugural conference. But I'm so delighted that when we had the first conference outside of Singapore, it was Chulalongkorn that stepped up to the plate, and they said, we want to host the first event outside of Singapore, and I cannot think of a better country, university, or law school to do this. Thailand is known around the world, deservedly so, as one of the most welcoming places in the world. It is a meeting place that welcomes people with a smile, and everybody feels welcome here. Chulalongkorn University is a leading institution in ASEAN that has regional and global impact. And what Dean Parina and her people who came before her have done here is absolutely amazing. So I don't want to take more time except just to express my thanks to the President, the Dean, and our distinguished speaker, who is the President of the Thai Stock Exchange. I really thank you for taking time out of your schedule to add great value, not just to the academic impact, but to the impact in society, to hear from you what has really been going on the ground with stakeholders and corporate governance. And with that, I just thank you very much, and we will have the other welcoming addresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for your address. Now, it's my pleasure to invite Dean Parina Siwanit, Dean of the Faculty of Law, Chulalongkorn University, to deliver her welcome remark. Thank you, Dean Parina.
Good afternoon. สวัสดีค่ะ Distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, colleagues, and friends, it is my great honor to welcome all of you to today's forum at the Faculty of Law, Chulalongkorn University. And first and foremost, I would like to extend my warmest greetings to Adjunct Professor Kittipong Urapi Pattanapong, the chairperson of the Stock Exchange of Thailand, and our proud alumni, and also the member of the Chulalongkorn University Council, Professor Dr. Willard Puriwat, the president of the Chulalongkorn University. I'd express my sincere and heartfelt appreciation to Professor Dan Pushnik for initiating this ACLF. I also wish to recognize our esteemed speakers and participants, including fellow legal scholars across the Asia-Pacific region, particularly our members of the ACLF Forum. We at Chulalongkorn University's Faculty of Law are proud to be part of this network, and we are honored to serve as the first host of the ACLF Forum outside Singapore, following Singapore Management University. And we are also very proud to be the co-founder of this forum. When Dan first approached me about holding this forum a couple years ago, right? We are eager to seize the opportunity. And we know, as probably Dan mentioned, this is my last year as the dean. So we like to seize the opportunity that we have to host the first forum of ACLF outside Singapore this year, believing not only that we will benefit to the legal academic community, but this forum also have a broader societal impact in Thailand, and of course, the Asia Pacific and beyond. As we plan this forum, with the world continue to change at a rapid, if not risky, pace, underscoring the growing significance of sustainable development, our collective commitment to sustainability, particularly from us in Asia, must be both urgent and inclusive. More than ever, corporations driving our economic progress must broaden their focus to encompass all stakeholders and the long-term well-being of society rather than solely on their own interests. With that in mind, I welcome all of you once again to encourage open and thoughtful discussions on how we can better support all stakeholders and through the innovative corporate governance, while emphasizing the vital role of law, regulation, and governance in promoting sustainable development. It is now my pleasure to invite our President, Professor Dr. Willard Puriwat, the President of Chulalongkorn University, to deliver his opening speech. Please welcome him.
Good afternoon. Assistant Professor Dr. Parina Siwanit, Dean of Faculty of Law, distinguished guests, esteemed scholar, respected colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure and honor to be here. It is both like to open 2025 Asian Corporate Law Forum, ACLF, here at Chulalongkorn University. Today marks an exciting convergence of bright minds, leading academic practitioners and policymakers from Asia and beyond, united by our shared commitment to deepening the dialogue on corporate governance, law, and responsible business practice in the 21st century. At Chulalongkorn University, our mission is to be a globally engaged institution, driving development and positive change not just in Thailand but around the world. We continuously seek opportunities to connect on the international stage, staying of emerging trends and using knowledge to uplift society. Today's forum focusing on corporate governance and a stakeholder-oriented approach perfectly aligns with our strategic vision, specifically in the theme of corporate governance and stakeholders, speak directly to our commitment to sustainability, social responsibility, and inclusive growth. I would like to express my gratitude to the many distinguished universities across the Asian region for their partnership. A special note, thanks go to Singapore Management University, SMU. In particular, Professor Dan, for pioneering initiatives that have brought us here today. Close to home, I extend my heartfelt appreciation to our own Faculty of Law at Chulalongkorn University, under the leadership of Dean Parina Siwanit, for their vision and commitment in bringing the ACLF to Thailand, and for their effort in fostering academic engagement, nurturing collaboration, and showcasing Thai legal scholarship on the global stage. This is a proud moment of Chulalongkorn University. To everyone participating, I encourage you to seize the extraordinary opportunity to open dialogue and robust intellectual engagement. Our collective success depends on the depth of the idea shared, the leadership formed, and the commitment to bringing the new insight to life. For me, law doesn't mean regulation. A couple weeks ago, I got a chance to make a speech at Siam Square. We turned it to be the law square. That is the law for everyone. We turned Siam Square shopping, our street, to be the square of law and regulation. I did mention to everyone that law doesn't mean regulation, but law is a part of life. If the law is a part of everyone's life, corporate law is part of every institution success. So I'd rather say that corporate law doesn't mean just the law, but it's something that the management got to understand it, live with it, and make it to bring their success to their organization. So I would like to, again, present my heartfelt to all who have made this forum possible, especially the ACLF members, the European Corporate Governance Institute, and of course, our own Faculty of Law at Chulalongkorn University. Your dedication and passion are truly inspiring, and we eagerly anticipate the meaningful impact of your work in the months and the years ahead. Thank you very much for being here, and let's make the most out of this opportunity to shape the future of corporate governance for the benefit of all stakeholders and everyone, organization as a whole. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite Professor Willard, Dean Parina, Professor Dan, and Professor Kittipong to come forward to our photo session on the stage. Now I would like to invite all of the ACLF board member to join us for the photos. Let me name you: Vivian, Steve, Andrew, Aja, Deng, June, Tomoyo, and Royhan. Please come forward. So I would like to invite everyone to join us in the front. Please. Thank you so much. Thank you.สไลด์อาจารย์พอแล้วใช่ไหมครับ สไลด์อาจารย์ Please wait for a moment. We are preparing the presentations. So now we will proceed to our keynote speech by Professor Kittipong Urapi Pathanapong, the chairperson of the Stock Exchange of Thailand and a highly respected leader in Thailand financial and legal communities. With the extensive expertise in corporate law and governance, Professor Kittipong has played a key role in shaping strategic initiatives to enhance market integrity and sustainability in Thailand. Please join me to welcome Professor Kittipong to the podium, please. Thank you.
สวัสดีครับ Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished guests, the speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor to join you at the first ASEAN Corporate Law Conference outside Singapore. An important gathering of distinguished mind of leaders and scholars from all over ASEAN in order to strengthening the governance, regulations, and legal practices across Asia. As Professor Parina mentioned, I am the alumni of Chulalongkorn Faculty of Law since 1973. It's 53 years, and also active lecturer at this law school. After this, I have to teach a class at 3 p.m. I try to avoid teaching because I teach for almost 30 years, but I now less teaching. And Professor Parina said you can't stop teaching. So as you may know that my area of law has been heading Baker McKenzie as a corporate head and tax and family business governance for so long. I retired 4 years ago. And I used to serve as the president of the Institute of Directors, is the leading of the corporate governance in Thailand, and also the current one, maybe the real practicing lawyer first served in the Stock Exchange of Thailand. So today I would like to share my insight and my experience to share with you today. The theme of the speech today for me is charting a shared vision for Thailand, a private sector, empowering stakeholders for sustainable governance and inclusive growth. This topic is both timely and vital as business navigate an increasingly complex global landscape. The need for strong governance, ethical leadership, and stakeholder inclusivity has never been more pressing. We gather here today recognizing universal truth that behind every thriving economy lies a foundation of strong governance and sound legal frameworks. These are not merely ideals or theories, they are practical necessities, crucial and stabilities for stabilities, confidence, and sustainable prosperity in an ever-changing world. In an area of rapid innovations, growing connectivities, and constant disruption, businesses and investors alike seek certainty, fairness, and transparency, all fostered by clear rules, efficient enforcement, and ethical standards. Maybe you can turn off. Ensuring that Thailand private sector remain competitive, inclusive, and resilient will require a steadfast commitment to this principle. Throughout my long career, spanning more than 4 decades in law and governance, and now as a chairman of the Stock Exchange of Thailand, I have witnessed firsthand how effective legal framework and good governance drive economic growth, attract investment, and foster long-term stability. The benefit extend far beyond the boardroom or financial market. They underpin economic developments, innovations, and the well-being of societies. Today, as we exchange insight and deliberate on legal trends shaping Asia's corporate landscape, I invite you to explore together how the rule of law serves as the foundations upon which trust, competitiveness, and sustainability are built, creating an environment where market, business, and nation can truly flourish. Can you turn? Next. Ladies and gentlemen, the trust and confidence is the first pillar we are talking about. The strength of an economic system, whether in Asia or globally, is inherently built upon the trust. Trust creates confidence, and confidence drives growth and stability. Yet, trust cannot merely be assumed. It must be actively nurtured through rigorous governance, clear regulations, and uncompromising ethical standards. In my experience, both as legal professions and as a chairman of the Stock Exchange of Thailand and the ex-president of the ECGI of Directors, I have observed that investor trust and market confidence hinge directly upon the fairness, transparency, and consistency of our legal framework. Simply put, when laws are clear, enforcement swift, and regulatory oversight transparent, market thrive, investor commit, and society prosper. Recognizing the fundamental connection, Thailand has proactively undertaken comprehensive initiative to strengthen governance and ensure that our regulatory environment aligns with global best practice. Please you turn on the next page. When I served as a chairman of the stock exchange, Thai stock markets has been deteriorated because of the trust and confidence. So when I first taken the positions, we have intensified, number one, collaboration across regulatory bodies, including the Securities and Exchange Commission or SEC, the Anti-Money Laundering Office, the Department of Special Investigation or DSI, and the Public Prosecutor. This coordination allows us to respond swiftly and decisively to market misconduct, protecting investors and upholding the integrity of our economic system. To strengthen enforcement, we support expanding the SEC investigative powers, which are now under the government to propose as the Royal Decree, enabling the faster evidence collections and resolution of misconduct cases. This reform would enhance investor protection and preserve market integrity through more efficient regulatory action. This remains to be seen on how this can work or not. Second one is an era marked by digital disruption and increasing global connection. We have embraced advanced technologies, including AI, to significantly improve our market surveillance capabilities. Leveraging AI helps us quickly detect anomalies, investigate market abuse, such as the insider tradings or manipulation, and proactively prevent fraudulent schemes, thereby safeguarding both investor and market credibility. It takes us about less than a month to detect and send the case to the SEC. Third, transparency remains one of our highest priorities. We have enhanced disclosures, allow critical market activities such as short selling and program tradings, empowering investors to make informed decisions and promoting fairer market practices. You can see a lot of news about short selling, HFT across the market in Asia now. Yet transparency alone is not enough. We are actively enhancing knowledge of security law among investor-listed companies, fostering a strong compliance culture. Additionally, we are supporting listed companies in elevating corporate governance standards through specialized training and international best practice, directly contribution to investor and the long-term stabilities. We are also investing and funding, in fact, the Faculty of Law, to do a textbook on security law in order to make it authorities for all people in judicial system can understand what is the security laws mean and what is the textbook. And we are granting this to Center of the Chulalongkorn University. Lastly, and perhaps the most critically, we continually advocate for an ethical business culture. Robust legal framework alone are insufficient. Without cultivating an ethical mindset among corporation and market participants, we are promoting the three lines of defense model for effective governance. One is operational management as the first line, managing risk and internal audit, management and compliance function as the second line, providing oversight, and the internal audit as the third, offering independent assurance, creating multiple layers of protecting that enhance investor trust. Integrity cannot be legislated. It must become a part of our shared corporate ethos. As the esteemed Professor late Professor Sangvien Intravichai, who is the former chairman of the Stock Exchange, once said, and has been putting in the big boardroom in the Stock Exchange, right is right, even if no one is doing it. Wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. This principle guides us for the setting a clear ethical compass for our markets, forming the basis of trustworthy environment where businesses can thrive sustainably and competitively in the long run. With the foundation of trust firmly established, we are now well positioned to explore how regulatory agilities, innovations, and the forward-looking initiative further enhance our market competitiveness. Number two is market competitiveness. Next, please. Ladies and gentlemen, a market built on trust sets the stage for competitiveness. But trust alone does not guarantee success in an increasingly dynamic global economies. Market competitiveness requires continuous innovations, regulatory agilities, and the capacities to swiftly adapt to evolving investor needs and global standards. Recognizing this, Thailand has initiated several strategic reforms aimed explicitly at strengthening our market attractiveness, agilities, and overall competitive positions. First, we are undertaking an ambitious regulatory simplification initiative known as the regulatory guillotine. This initiative systematically identifies and removes outdated, redundant, and overly complex regulations, significantly reducing barriers for businesses. For example, our regulatory guillotine will improve financial services by streamlining EKYC for one-time verifications across institutions and simplifying onboard for young investors, making market more accessible to Thailand youth. By streamlining law and regulations, we aim not just to facilitate smoother market participation, but to send a clear signal to international and domestic investors that Thailand remain open, flexible, and responsive. There are few things that we are proposed to the government that need to change to make it competitiveness. The second one, our colleague in Asia maybe know about omnibus law concept like Indonesia. We are recognize that business need more versatile regulatory environment to effectively respond to the fast changing global condition. We are proposing to the government to developing omnibus law designed to consolidate, modernize, and upgrade our capital market regulation comprehensively. The omnibus law, including critical provisions such as introducing of dual class of shares structures to better accommodate high growth SME, startup, and family business, simplifying M&A, and facilitating a corporate restructuring throughout reduced regulatory burdens. This flexibility empowers companies to quickly adapt, innovate, and seize emerging opportunities in Thailand and beyond. We are waiting for the government to adopt this idea. Third, we are actively enhancing rules around share buyback or treasury stock, ensuring listed companies have greater flexibilities in managing liquidities and capital structure. Our recent proposal to Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Finance, including reducing unnecessary procedure hurdles and relaxing time limitation for repurchasing and reselling treasury stock. These practical improvements bring our rules in line with international best practices, allowing Thai companies to effectively manage their resources and respond proactively to market conditions. Collectively, these strategic initiatives are positioning Thailand not just as a reliable market, but as a dynamic, responsive, and innovation-friendly destination for global investment. By embracing regulatory flexibilities and fostering continuous innovation, we are committed to ensuring Thailand's competitiveness remain robust and sustainable in today's rapidly changing economic environment. The third one, sustainability. Next cup. Ladies and gentlemen, while trust provides a stable foundation and competitiveness, ensure dynamisms and adaptabilities. True long-term success requires sustainability. Today, sustainability isn't merely a desirable feature, it is fundamental to our economic strategies and long-term growth. Recognizing this, Thailand is firmly embedding sustainability into the very fabric of our market practice. First, we have accelerated the integration of ESG, environment, social, and governance criteria to our investment ecosystem by establishing a comprehensive ESG data into our platform and collaborating with globally recognized rating agencies like FTSE Russell. We empower investors with reliable, comparable data to make informed, sustainable investment choice. These enhanced ESG transparencies help investors clearly see companies' commitment to sustainable business practices. Second, we actively developing innovative financial instruments to encourage investment aligned with sustainability goals. Initiatives such as the Thai ESG Fund and Vayupak Fund incentivize investors to channel resources toward companies exhibiting strong ESG performance. Additionally, we have recently expanded our products offering to include climate-related financial instruments, further emphasizing our commitment to addressing global climate challenge. Third, our sustainability agenda involves building a robust ecosystem for carbon credit. We are collaborating with leading global exchanges such as ECGI, conducting intensive training sessions and providing advanced carbon calculations to our listed company and their supply chains. This initiative not only positions Thailand as a significant regional hub for carbon credit trading, but also encourages business across all sectors to actively measure, manage, and reduce their carbon footprint, thereby contributing positively toward global and climate action. Additionally, recognizing the need for competitiveness corporate growth, we recently introduced the Jump Plus initiative, similar to have been done in Korea and Japan. Through Jump Plus, the Stock Exchange of Thailand is proactively helping listed companies enhance their corporate value by strategically leverage ESG principles, AI, investor communication, and merger and acquisition. This holistic approach ensures business and well-equipped for deliver sustainable long-term growth and effectively address the need of diverse stakeholder groups. Lastly, sustained growth requires an inclusive and resilient economy. To achieve this, we have actively exploring such initiatives that we call, like in Japan, NISA, to call TISA, Thailand Individual Saving Account. We have been finished the study just last week, and we proposed it to the government within few months now. This TISA will specialize saving vehicle aimed at encouraging long-term personal saving and instrument for retirement and the children. Although still under consideration, the TISA represents our forward-looking commitment to fostering a culture of financial resilience. Additionally, we provide target support to family business, SME, and startup VC, guiding them forward sustainable and professionally managed growth, leveraging the strength and opportunities that our capital market uniquely offers. Ultimately, our collective future depends on the action we take today. Sustainability is no longer optional. It is essential through our comprehensive approach to ESG, innovative financial products, carbon market developments, and inclusive economic growth. Thailand is committed to setting a strong example of sustainability leadership, benefiting both investor and social at large. Rule of law. Next one,ครับ. Trust, competitiveness, and sustainability do not exist in isolation. They depend on a strong legal foundation, the rule of law. It's not just another pillar. It is the bedrock upon which these principles are built. Without effective governance, transparent regulations, and fair enforcement, trust, faith, competitiveness weakening, and sustainability become unachievable. As we firmly believe, justice delayed is justice denied. ensuring fair, timely, and consistent legal enforcement is essential, not just to prevent wrongdoer, but to create an environment where the market, business, and economics can thrive. Thailand has taken a clear, decisive step to uphold and reinforce the rule of law, aligning closely with our goal to integrate with international standards, including our aspiration to join the OECD. Over the past decade, we have worked to strengthening our regulatory enforcement and compliance, as evidenced by our proactive approach to market misconduct. Our critical measure of our commitment to the rule of law is reflected in the rigorous enforcement and proactive compliance action we have implemented over recent years. From 2015 to 2024, the Stock Exchange of Thailand referred a total of 270 cases to the SEC for investigation. 47% involved market manipulation, altogether about 128 cases. 40% of the about 108 cases is insider trading, represent those one, and the dissemination of false information and front running together account about 13%. Out of the notified cases or reference to the SEC, around 60% or 100 cases result in enforcement actions by the SEC, demonstrating our seriousness in addressing misconduct. 75% of those actions involve civil sanction, demonstrate the commitment to ensuring resolution and accountability. 21% result in criminal charge, underscoring our determination to enforce severe consequence for severe breaches. 4% led to administrative fine, serving as important reminder of corporate responsibility. Looking deeper into the past decade of 20 years, significant misconduct cases involve managed level violation, notably 105 cases of embezzlement and misappropriation by corporate executive, resulting in the fine of totaling 35 billion baht. Substantial fraudulent practice such as window dressing with penalties amount to roughly 30 billion baht. Insider and trading and deliberate market manipulation have consistently posed significantly challenged, misleading investor and threatening market integrity. These statistics are not merely numbers, they represent our firm commitment to transparency, ethical market behavior, and rigorous enforcement to the rule of law. By actively prosecuting misconduct and improving the efficiencies of our regulatory process, we assure both domestic and international investors that Thailand remains a secure, trustworthy environment for their investment. In line with this enforcement effort, Thailand is actively reforming our legal framework to further strengthen the rule of law. This including streamline of the regulatory guillotine and the proposal of the omnibus law reform to measure aim at providing clear, predictable, and internationally aligned standards. The path forward demands more than just regulatory change. It requires nurturing a deep-rooted culture of legal respect, ethical conduct, and compliance throughout the market. This culture shift underpins our vision of a market where trust and integrity are not enforced only by regulation but embraced as core value. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have explored 4 foundation pillars essential for a thriving, resilient, and future-ready economic landscape: trust and confidence, market competitiveness, and sustainability, and the
reaching commitment to the rule of law. Together, these pillars do not stand separately, rather collectively support our shared vision for long-term sustainable prosperity, trust, attract investment, competitiveness, ensure dynamism, sustainability, safeguard the future, and adherence to the rule of law hold everything firmly together. But principle alone won't shape the future. It requires consistent action, genuine collaborations, and unwavering commitment from us all. As leaders and professionals gather at this ASEAN Corporate Law Forum today, let us reaffirm our commitment to this principle. Let's continuously collaborate, innovate, and uphold the highest standard of governance, integrity, and law. In closing, allow me to emphasize again the power words of which I love it very much and refer it so many times when I speak. For the late Professor Sangvin Trevichai, which deeply resonate today. Right is right, even if no one is doing. Wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. Let this word guide us forward, helping us create market and society that we can all be proud of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kittipong, for sharing your commitment and visions, and also such an enlightening keynote for us to have today. We have a short break for 5 minutes for the setup. Please come back in 5 minutes. Thank you. For next sessions, we will have the panel discussions. The first panel discussion today will be on corporate governance and stakeholders, with the focus on Thailand. We have the title for our panel discussion as Corporate Governance and Stakeholder, Thailand Perspective and Vision for Sustainable Development, which go hands in hand with the theme of our forum for this year, 2025 ACLF. Today, we are fortunate to have our representative from many organizations, including Bank of Thailand, the Security Exchange Commissions, the Stock Exchange of Thailand, and also from private institutions, financial service sectors. Each of our panelists play a very critical role in guiding Thailand markets toward greater sustainability, accountability, and inclusivity. Before I begin, I would like to invite all panelists to the stage, please.ขออภัยครับพอดีมาแล้วใช่ไหมครับขอให้นั่งตามแผนข้างบนเลยได้ไหมครับขอบคุณครับครับเชิญเลยครับเดี๋ยวผมนั่งนี่ก็ได้ครับOkay, now we begin. Before the discussions, I would like to invite each of the panelists to introduce yourselves, especially how your role at your organization relate to sustainability and stakeholder. May we begin with Dr. Pipat, please.
Okay, I got it. All right. So thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm Pipat Lenaramithai. I'm the Chief Economist of Kianakin Patra Financial Group. So we are probably the representative of the private sector. We're here on this panel. So in our financial groups, even though we are the smallest bank in Thailand, but we have a strong platform in terms of the capital markets, asset management, and banking sector. So we have several issues related to the sustainability, both in terms of banking, investment, and asset management. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all participants. My name is Chulalongkorn University. I'm a director of the fundraising policy department from the SEC Thailand. And as the SEC Thailand representative, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for the Faculty of Law, Chulalongkorn University. I'm very honored to be here and to share the view of the sustainabilities and from the regulator perspective.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kanika Tampanishwong. I came from the Poi Eung Pagon Institute for Economic Research based in the Bank of Thailand. So my role at the Bank of Thailand, I work on climate change and sustainability.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sukit Kitibunyanon, Vice President of Corporate Sustainability Department. So I've been working for Stock Exchange of Thailand for 20 years and also work for corporate sustainability for 10 years. Thank you.
Our goal of our panel will be to explore how the government and private organizations within the financial industry and beyond can collaborate to build a more sustainable ecosystem. And one thing is that it's not only serve for the shareholders, right? But it's also have to serve for a really broader community that relies on stable, responsible, and forward-looking economies. As for our format today, I will start by posting questions to each of the panelists, and afterward we will move on to a set of shared questions for the entire panel to discuss. So let's move on to Bank of Thailand first. We know that Bank of Thailand has been very important in shaping the macroeconomic policy and financial stability of the countries. So my question is, how is Bank of Thailand or the BOT integrate sustainability considerations, especially ESG, into monetary policy and supervision of Bank of Thailand?
Thank you for the question. I think from the perspective of the Bank of Thailand, we all realize that climate, today I will focus mainly on the climate risk. We know that climate risk impose quite substantial impact on both the price stabilities and also the financial stabilities. And at the Bank of Thailand, I think we have been trying to promote the integration. First, we trying to promote the financial sectors to try to, especially the banks, to integrate this environmental and climate risk aspect into their strategies, and also encourage them to also conduct the risk assessment, and which I'm going to go into details a bit later. So, and the last part, we also trying to encourage this disclosure of the climate-related data, right? So in terms of the risk assessment, we have been requesting the Thai financial institution to conduct the climate stress test, and we have been dividing into two phases. Last year, we already encouraged the bank to conduct the physical risk, the climate stress test, emphasizing on the physical risk. So here at the Bank of Thailand, we provide the flood scenario, and also through using the macroeconomic impact as a transmission channel, we then ask the bank to try to stress testing how would that impact both the credit risk and also that operational risk. On top of that, we also try to create the ecosystem for the integration of sustainability by developing 5 key building blocks. The first one is to encourage the financial institution to develop like product and services that cater for more green and climate related. The second part is like to also like ensure that everyone is talking on the same page. We have been collaborating with like different stakeholders, including the Security Exchange Commission, Stock Exchange of Thailand, in developing the Thailand taxonomy. So for the Thailand taxonomy, the previous phase, we have been launching the taxonomy for the energy and the transport sector. And this year, we will be, in the middle of this year, we're going to be launching the other 4 sectors, which include agriculture, manufacturing, waste management, and also the building sector. Yeah. So this taxonomy will at least like ensure that like everyone is on the same page in terms of like what classify as green or not green, right? The third one, we also ensure that like people have been having sufficient incentive in terms of transitioning into like from brown to less brown towards green, right? And again, this one we at the Bank of Thailand, it is not only us that is like providing incentive alone, but we also collaborate with other sectors like such as like in the Ministry of Finance, like through the Board of Investment and so on. Last but not least, we also like put high emphasis on data and disclosure as well as like on the capacity building. And we hopefully like every time we request like the bank to conduct climate stress testing and so on, or even like on the development of the transition plans, we also try to ensure that we provide sufficient capacity building for them to ensure that they learn from like people who have been conducting similar exercise before, and then the bank know what to do. Yeah. Last but not least, like in your question, you also asked about like this incorporation of sustainability into like the journey. So I would say that throughout the whole journey, we started with like raising awareness on the importance of ESG. Then we have been publicizing what we call it as like a directional paper for like the bank to how to integrate this climate risk into like their strategies. The third one, we laid out the 5 building blocks that I mentioned before. And last but not least, we know that transitioning from brown to less brown towards green all require financing, right? So we have already put in place like what we call financing the transition, which is it is a pilot project collaborating with 8 major banks in Thailand to ensure that like the people or the businesses, they can tap into like the green financing or transitioning financing, and including the SME as well. Yeah.
Thank you for your answer. I actually asked them a lot of questions, but I have to narrow down to a few questions today. Thank you for your overview of the big pictures. And now I want to move on to a very unique character of Thailand as well. Thailand economy has a very unique characteristic, right? One of that is that it has a really significant SME or small and medium enterprise base, and also a very strong export sector as well. So I would like to know how does the BOT envisioning supporting this sector, especially transitioning them to a more sustainable stakeholder-focused models.
At the BOT, I think we realized that like a majority of the SME in Thailand, they still like the reliance on like the fossil fuel, and also like, so we still consider the majority to be still like brown sectors. So in order for motivating them to transition from brown to less brown, right, we put in place this financing the transition program. So through this financing the transition program, it is like similar to a sandbox in which like we try, we have different commercial banks like developing a unique like sort of like transition financing products in which like one of the key stakeholders or the users would be the SMEs. So the example of like the loan product that under this financing the transition project, we have like product to finance like the investment in the renewable energy, the product that also incorporate like not only the solar panel or investment in the renewable energy or waste management alone, but also we try to encourage the banks to also thinking about like the adaptation financing as well. So some of the commercial bank right now start supporting like the SMEs like in terms of investing in, for example, like sustainable water management, like in agriculture, or other type of like sustainable agriculture programming as well. So that one, hopefully, we already set the goal as well, like that by the year 2025, we aim to promote around like 100 billion Thai baht of like loan that are under the sandbox program. And just to update you that by October last year, we already managed to achieve about 20 billion. So until the end of this year, we hope like to be able to lend out more, give out more lending for like this transitioning financing.
Thank you, Dr. Kanika. Now let's move on to another regulator in the financial sector as well. Now we have the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC. And my first question for you will be on the subject of how the SEC has been encouraging listed companies to adopt stakeholder inclusive business practice and to improve the corporate governance standard. I know that the SEC play a really crucial role in ensuring market integrity and protecting investor, but I just want to know about how you do that in the details.
Okay, as a capital market regulators, the ECGI Thailand is committed to refining the strategies and operations to address the challenges and issues, particularly those influencing the stakeholders' trust and confidence in the Thai capital market. To facilitate the fundraising, recently regulatory amendment by NEC with cooperation with the Stock Exchange of Thailand, we are trying to relax the regulations aims to support the fundraising of Thai company for all sizes, including new economy, BCG model, and the large foreign companies. For the large foreign company, we have now allowed to list in the SET under the market capitalization rules. So this move is decided to attract more diverse and substantial investment, fostering economic growth and innovations. So another aspect is to enhance the listed qualifications. The revised regulation being introduced to improve qualification of the companies seeking to list on SET and MAI. This includes requiring audited financial statement compliant with the PAE standard, the publicly accountable entities standard for the past 3 years, and increase the profit requirement. And furthermore, the use of risk warning signs of investor has been expanded to ensure that the better informed investor decision under various circumstances. So that is the recently regulatory amendment. And for our SEC strategic plans for the next 3 years, we emphasize on enhancing trust and confidence. This includes improving the corporate governance and sustainability disclosure. This is we identify that the key challenges and the trends are Thai capital market facing diverse challenge, including global economic, voluntary market confidence, and climate change and sustainability. So the key issues were identified as the following. We would like to strengthening the corporate governance, building outstanding strength of listed companies, and promoting the digital capital market, and also developing tools and services to support long-term investment. So today I will cover only two topics of SEC strategies plan, which is trust and confidence and sustainability capital market. To build trust and confidence, we are supporting value creations for stock listed in the SET as a priority. This is involved the monitoring policy effectiveness and evaluating market professionals, which we call gatekeepers, to ensure that they uphold the high standard for practice. And we also evaluating the effectiveness of implement measure is crucial while maintaining the balance between regulations and fundraising costs. This ensures that the market remain attractive to insurer and investor. And also we enhancing the internal audit of the listed company and strengthening the oversight of financial advisory and auditor as a key step in maintaining market integrity. So another aspect is improving the disclosure of information that reflect the value creation, so such as the project called Corporate Value Up Program. This is a project that used to address the sustainable development of listed companies. And for the aspect of sustainable capital market, the developing of supporting plans for both supply and demand aligned with the international standards is a key focus. This ensures that the Thai capital market remains competitive and attractive to the global investor. And the Thai capital market has strength in sustainability with high growth products such as bond and mutual funds. And the Thai listed companies are recognized for their sustainability effort, with many being ranked in the International Sustainability Index, like the Dow Jones Sustainability Index Emerging Markets. Therefore, the roadmap to disclosure the information under the International Sustainability Standards have been initiated. With the public consultation held last year, the initiative aimed to align the Thai market practice with the global standards and enhance the investor confidence. So I think to enhance the sustainability disclosure, we issue the ISSB-based sustainability disclosure rules for the listed company. According to the roadmap, is a significant step toward the great transparency and enhancing the disclosure of sustainability theme funds and portfolio management according to the sustainability principle to ensure that the investor have access relevant and reliable information. And we also developed the ecosystem to support the voluntary carbon market. This is crucial for promoting environmental sustainability and encouraging the intermediaries to use sustainability factor in their analysis and advisory service to help integrate sustainability into their investment decisions. So our role as the regulator is encouraging the listed companies to improve and strengthen the corporate governance and the disclosure of information reflecting the sustained impact is necessary to maintain transparency and accountabilities. And we as the SEC Thailand is considering uplift the listed company sustainability related disclosure requirement to be consistent with the ISSB standard through the Thailand ISSB roadmap, which I will go through later for the next questions.
So I can see a very evidence development in the capital market in Thailand toward more sustainable enforcement and effort as well. My next questions will be about more future forward looking. From the perspective of many scholars, we understand that regulations can support innovation, So, do you foresee any SEC introducing new regulation that can incentivize innovation in ESG, green or social impacts or stakeholder-related investment? And how do you plan to monitor the compliance for that?
Okay, I give you a picture of the global trends and then the Thailand focus. The global trend is since the International Sustainability Standard Board or ISSB was established by the IFRS Foundation in 2021 to set the global baseline for the disclosures. In June 2023, the ISSB launched the standard that we call ISSB standards, aiming to use them as a global baseline for the sustainability disclosures. And at the present, the ISSB standard consists of two sub-standards, S1 and S2. S1 is the general requirement for disclosure sustainability-related financial information, and S2 is climate-related disclosure. So those standards are effective from 2024. And the standards were also endorsed by the IOSCO, the International Organization of the Security Commissions, who also encourage each country to consider adopting or applying the standard. Depends on their jurisdictional nature and context. So various countries, including Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, and Hong Kong, are adopting the ISB standard with the phasing-in approach and based on entity size and readiness. And for Thailand, the regulation is in regard to the sustainability-related information disclosure requirement as prescribed in the one report, or as you know in the name of the form 56-1. The SC Thailand have been enhanced the regulations related to the disclosure require listed companies to include the ESG. ESG means environmental, social, and governance information. Those information have to disclose in this report since 2022. And now the EC Thailand is considering to uplift the listed company sustainability-related disclosure requirement to be consistent with the emerging ISSB standard through the Thailand ISSB roadmap. The main objective of the roadmap are: first is to align the Thailand sustainability disclosure standard with the global baseline. And second, to reduce reporting burdens and improve harmonization for the entity, and also provide sufficient and comparable information to the investor and stakeholder. So we are conducting a gap assessment between current one report and the ISB standard and identify the difference between the disclosure form, context, and structure. The ISB standard provide more detailed requirements, especially regarding the climate change risks and opportunities. So the purpose for the ISB roadmap are: the reporting entity should include all listed companies, including REIT, infra trust, property fund, and infra fund. And the effective timeline, we are phase implementation from 2026. Start with the set 50 companies and end with the all listed company in the 2030. And we have also the transition relief allowed by ISSB for the first 5 years. And the next step, within this year, the SEC Thailand expect to launch the public consultation on the notification along with the relevant form and align with ISB standard. And also we also have a plan to facilitate the listed company in the transitioning to the new disclosure requirement by planning to enhance their capacity and understanding of the standard also. That this will be achieved by providing capacity building program and disclosure guideline to align to the ISB standard.
Thank you, Kun Kanika. Let's move on to the Stock Exchange of Thailand or SET. My first question for Kun Sukit is actually on how you can tell me about your role and your main initiative at the SAT, something that might encourage companies to adopt stakeholder-oriented strategies.
Thanks for the questions. May I have presentation on the screen? Right. It has been over 3 decades that SET has promoted sustainability to listed company in Thailand. But there are so many details here. Let me start in some of them. Let's start in around 1993 to 95 that SET, including SEC, required the company to appoint independent directors and audit committee to ensure check and balance in board performance. But not that long, in 2002, Stock Exchange of Thailand established CG Center. At the same time that there were a lot of US scandal cases like Enron and WorldCom. So the key role of this center is to set governance standard by issuing CG principle or someone called CG code, and we also issue the guidelines for the companies. The next highlight was in 2015. So during the time when we talk about governance, we don't talk about governance as a standalone issue. We also include E-environment and S-social as well. So the first time in Thai capital market that SET has developed ESG assessments. So at first we call this assessment Thailand Sustainability Investments, and after that the name is changed to SET ESG rating. In the first year there were 50 companies joining and qualify this assessment, but it's quite successful because 10 years later in 2024 there were 250 companies joining this assessment, or 5 times up. So right now, SET, now we are working with LSEG, London Stock Exchange Group, to enhance the ESG assessment from Thai standard to global standard. And from 2026 onwards, SET ESG rating will be modified and renamed to FTSE Russell rating.
Thank you for your answer. And thank you for the long list of initiatives shown on the slide here. I think from the academic standpoint, right, market-based initiative can be something that look very attractive for the company. And from that angle, do you see that market-based incentive can be something reflecting in regulations or things overseen by the SAT, such as the listed rule or reporting standard?
So in terms of listing rules and process, SET will work closely with SEC to screen the company before SEC give it approval and company listed in the stock exchange. We focus in the listing rule. There are 2 main criteria, a qualitative one and qualitative. In terms of qualitative, we focus on the number of revenues, the number of profits. But that might be the questions from investor. How can we trust that number? Is this a quality number or not? So at this point, qualitative can help investor. SEC will work closely with auditor to ensure that the company already have optimum internal control system. And SEC also check the biography and track record of the person who will be appointed to be a director, to be in white list, not in the blacklist. Besides from listing rule, in terms of disclosures, whether it's in prospectus or in the annual report. So in Thailand, annual report we call one report. Companies also required to disclose environment and social implementation. For example, in the form they are asked to state the policy in terms of environment. They also have to assess the risk in terms of human rights risk. If they violate the risk, how the company mitigate that risk. So these environment and social indicators remind the company that when they do the business, you have to concern outside stakeholder as well. So for stock exchange, when we work with the company in terms of governance promotion, we also work with the board of directors and the company's management because we believe in tone at the top and believe in the board is a role model of the organizations. So when we work, we encourage the company to bring governance process embedded into the board process. So when the company run like this regularly, finally, it's not board process anymore. It's turned to be corporate culture. So that is the ultimate goal that we would like to support the company.
Okay, thank you. We also see the trend that sometimes we get more together, more globalization. Sometimes we getting further away from each other. But I know that in Asia Pacific, we seem to be more collaborating among ourselves, and it's a long-term trend, right? How do you see SET as a very important, one of the most important, if not stock exchange in Asia Pacific? How do you collaborate with other stock exchange in Asia Pacific?
I think the question is like, what are the success factors, right, for increasing global visibility for Thai asset? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the question is changed. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, the question is, what are the key success factors for increasing global visibility of Thai assets? As far as I can see, to implement ESG is a long-term process. So when SET promotes sustainability to companies, we also give them a time and flexibilities. So why? Because the readiness of the company to implement ESG are different. For the large size company with ample resources, they can start working on ESG right away. Contrary to this small company with limited resources, they have to take some time. So I have good example on the next slide. Can we move to next slide, please?
Next slide.
A few years ago, SET launched set ESG reporting guides. So this guideline positions itself in the midpoint of disclosure. So that means on one side, the company is required to disclose according to the disclosure regulations. On another side, we have some global ESG indicators that recommend the company to disclose. So, and those indicators come from IRC, SISP, for example. We encourage the company to disclose, but not mandatory. So if the company is ready to disclose, okay, go ahead, they can disclose. But if they are not disclosed, it's not a problem. This guideline can help the company to study, to give them a time and let them familiar with the ESG global context. So once they disclose, it's also benefit the company because its company stock will be in the radar of global investor. And finally, its stock could be possible include in the ESG global index as well.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I think we can now move on to our last panelist, and it's different from the previous one, right? We have a representative from a private sector, and the answer might be different. Now we have Dr. Pipat. Your role as Chief Economist of the Financial Holding Group seems very interesting to me. Can you talk about your role and how you influence governance strategies that can shape both investment returns and also some impact towards stakeholders as well?
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for having me for the last one in this first round, right? Because we are regulated by SEC, regulated by the BOT, member of SET, and the listed company ourselves. So I think we can attest to all the regulation or the standard we have been discussing. And I think that the key word here is the balancing act, right? Like how do you actually go through with all the regulation at the same time ensure that the return is optimal with all the considerations. And I think the ESG and sustainability has been a very popular theme these days, right? I think a couple of reasons, but I think these days our job is much easier for three reasons. I think number one, the awareness is much better than like a decade or two ago. A lot of people now talk about ESG as one of the requirements for them to do. So I think in terms of complying to those standards, it's much easier. Number two, I think the regulators are moving ahead with full force. So I think it's become the kind of the norm or the requirement for operating in the business. I think number three, I think the trade-off between sustainability and profitability of return or the return is now converging. We are now looking at the sustainability from, if you look at it from the long-term risk perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense. Even though if you look from the short-term profit or short-term return, it might have some conflicts. And in many of our business, that show up. For example, a lot of question was asked for asset management company, for example, because we believe that fiduciary duty is our main objective in managing others' people money. At times, we raise these questions of like what happened if sustainability or ESG come in conflict with the fiduciary duty, right? Which one would which one would prevail? I think that's a very tricky question in practice, even though in principle or in letter, I think it's written out there, right? And we are seeing time and time again that in execution, in implementation, this has become an issue. In banking, even in lending, I think the BOT was talking about the taxonomy, talking about all these norm and regulations on sustainability. But sometimes we are facing the real world problems, right? Because no one is telling us what to do, white or black, yes or no, right? A lot of times we are left with room for discretion, which is a good thing, right? But sometimes it comes at cost as well. I can give one example. We were considering a financing project as the run off the river dam in Laos, for example. And at the beginning, we were, this is a renewable energy. It's supposed to be good for environment, and it's a run of the river. It's not a reservoir dam, right? So it's have less impact in terms of deforestation. But still, there's a lot of issue in terms of the fish itself, about the culture, about the living of the people, and there's no clear cut whether or not this is a perfect project from the sustainability point of view or not. Like different people have different opinion, different people have different mitigating method of dealing with these, right? We heard like the project operator has to invest billions of dollars building up the stairways for the fish to go up the river, right? So I thought like that become an issue when the taxonomy doesn't give us the clear answer in terms of what to do and what not to do. And as an operator, that's give us a lot of risk in terms of like after we commit with the project, there's a lot of criticism in terms of the ESG as well. So I think those are some of the key some of the key issues that we're facing as well. And I think finally, a lot of issue as I think Dr. Gipon was mentioning earlier about the trust and confidence. That's an issue for Thailand as well. I think in terms of corporate governance, in terms of the letter and the regulation, I think we had everything, right? But the implementation, the execution and enforcement might be an issue, right? I think we have a lot of recent episodes where people call into question about the corporate governance issue in the stock exchange. And trust and confidence, I think it has been a concern for investors. I personally, as an economist, traveled to see investors. I think that's one of the reasons where foreign investor has expressing a lot of concern in terms of investing in Thailand. So I think even though we have all these rules and regulation, I think implementation and enforcement has been an issue for over here.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. It's different view from the private sector, right? My next question is about the evolution of Thailand's sustainable finance landscape, right? The sustainable landscape clearly depends on the cooperation and alignment among both private regulator and also with the um, public as well, right? So I want to see going ahead from now, maybe in the next 5 years, can you see the development in the ESG investing, ESG effort in the corporate world in Thailand?
Right. I think this is something we have seen a lot of improvement and trend, right, until recently, right? I think as soon as President Trump came in, pulling himself out from Paris Agreement, I think a lot of people are asking about the ESG investment these days, right? And then it seemed to us like we were running a marathon, right? And then we saw a couple of people have reached the U-turn, right? And they're coming back to us. And that begs the question, should we join them or should we go until the to the U-turn point, right? Because I think one of the key points for ESG investment is as more people are on board, right? That should improve, that should enhance the return of those investments. But if those who, I think in economics term, I think the free riding is a big issue for ESG investment. If everyone is on board, if everyone is doing the same thing, I think it should be leveling the playing field, right? But if the big player in the investment world is not doing it, those who are incurring a lot of costs, like investing in looking for replacement in energy, looking for the renewable, probably have to pay a lot of price for that. And it begs the question whether or not ESG as an investment, as a fiduciary duty of the asset management company, would that still make sense? Hopefully it still does. But I think that's one of the questions that's being raised. But I think at the same time, we see a lot of cooperating, a lot of coordination among the regulator, among the public in terms of pushing for the ESG investment, which is a good thing, right? We are doing a good thing for our world, good thing for the sustainability, but that I think a lot of people have been saying like, it doesn't matter, right? Even President Trump is here for 4 years. With or without him, the world has to keep looking for the rescue package for ourselves. But I think the question is whether or not we are incurring a lot of costs in the meantime. I think in Thailand, we are also encouraging the ESG investment. I think the government is putting a lot of money in terms of incentivize. I think lots of ESG fund, lots of push for like conforming with the regulation, conforming with the disclosure. Again, I think the devil is in the details, right? I think from what we look at, the disclosure has been, the standard has been the disclosure base, right? Not the performance base. So even though we said the tax subsidized fund has to invest only in the ESG conform companies, right? Or those with the good ratings. I think what we see is out of 50 companies in the SET 50 index, 43 companies qualify for that investment. So it's like, it doesn't matter, right? Everybody is qualified in one way or the other, even though like some of the company has a corporate governance issue, has an environmental issue, but I think that the rating doesn't reflect that in real time. But what we saw is the market reaction has been reacting to that. I think recently we have a few companies in Thailand that has a corporate governance issue, and I think right away investors are selling those companies, and the market cap loss is huge. So that means the private sector is actually paying a lot of attention to that, and when the trust and confidence is gone, I think that's where the investor are putting the price to that. So I think the cooperation in terms of sustainability is coming along, even though despite all these setbacks and challenges, and hopefully we don't have to wait until like the next 4 years until we can come back to the global movement in terms of sustainability and ESG again.
Thank you for your answer. I think your answer will resonate well with the discussion on our second panel as well, but with the international perspective, right? And I think even that we have the issue of geopolitics in mind, I really believe that the effort and commitment to put things on sustainability, a priority in Thailand, is still very, very important. But how can we really make it happen, right? We often discuss a very short-term or quarterly capitalisms versus long-term value creations. I want to see how the regulatory framework and market mechanisms, especially in the financial market sector, can be designed to really reward corporate behavior that focus on long-term commitment in stakeholder, rather than just trying to present itself as being green or being inclusive, right? Do you have any idea about that?
To bolster the trust and confidence and the long-term value creations, the ECGI Thailand has introduced several key measures to improve the transparency and fair disclosure. First is the project we call the Corporate Value Up Program. This is we are in cooperation with the Stock Exchange of Thailand to launch this program, which the company can disclose the forward-looking disclosure to enhance the shareholder value, and the listed company can voluntarily disclose the following information such as the business operation and operation result, and industry overview and competitions, and also the goals or plans for the environmental initiative or greenhouse gas emission reduction. So the listed company should regularly update this information to the investor on the progress of the disclosure information. And this is, I think, this is the one measure that we enhance the trust and confidence.
Thank you. Now maybe our last question now. For those of you maybe who haven't answered my previous question, do you have any things as a closing remark or something to share?
Let me begin first here. I think what we've been discussing is a lot about like nitty-gritty thing, right? But I think at the end of the day, I think two things is the most important. I think that's why we're here in the Department of Law, right? I think number one, enforcement and monitoring is the most important, because a lot of things we discussed is already been in place in terms of the law and regulation. But whenever enforcement is weak, I think that's where trust and confidence cannot be maintained, right? Number two, I agree that the disclosure of transparency is the most important thing, particularly for the market-based economy, because whenever action or inaction or mistake or wrongdoing is happening, if things are disclosed and being very transparent, I think the market would be forcing that way along. So it's believing a market force would be one of the factors would help shaping all these things that we want to do.
Yeah, I think on my part, I just want to add like the point on incentive. I think like we need to get the incentive right, not only in the capital like market or stimulating investment not per se, but to get everyone on board on this like green journey. Like this carbon pricing mechanism is crucial like for Thailand, and that also rely a lot on passing of like the Climate Change Act, which is like will allow us to promote like different instrument in Thailand and make it possible. So carbon pricing is needed, and like it need to send a good signal like for not only the business but also like the consumer like in general, like so that like they have real incentive to go green. So for me, like going green is not just like to like a matter of compliance or just to join the crowd, but it's a matter of like whether or not like your own business have genuinely like a real incentive to reduce like greenhouse gas emission. So if like for example, I bring example of the EU carbon border adjustment mechanism. So if my company is like basically exporting the CBAM goods to the EU and I don't actually adapt myself, so definitely I cannot sell or I will lose my competitiveness, right? So I think in Thailand to promote like the firms to like genuinely have like that sort of incentive, we need this sort of market forces like as a like the way to incentivize them, but also the government has to play the role by complementing with like this sending the right carbon pricing signal for the investor, for the company, and also for the general public as well. Yeah.
So I just would like to add on the topic about conflict between long-term and short-term. In the view of business, we understand that the company has to perform and report by a quarterly annually. But anyway, the roles of the board and the board roles of executive do not end in a year. So based on my study in the view of ESG, ESG does not resist or reject the short-term performance. But the question is to how to find the right balance between short-term and long-term. So this day we can see some development from a global ESG assessor like the DJSI. Now there are some criteria that ask the company that if the company have set the long-term performance for C-levels, which align to the long-term performance. So there is one development that the ESG assessor try to look longer than the short-term.
Thank you for all your view or you share today. I think we have many key takeaway points for today, but one of the most important takeaway that I can see is that even though so many things have to be right to make ESG effort to work in our countries, there have to be a market for that, have to be a commitment from both the private and the public as well. But I think one of the most important reflecting from the keynote speech as well is that we need to have a very good foundations on the legal and regulatory side as well to make this happen, to incentivize and to encourage what might already have working to work better and work for all of stakeholders, not just everyone from the company itself. Thank you for the panel today. Now just opportunity for our photos, for our sessions. Can we have the photographers? So we're gonna move on to our second panel today and our last panel as well on the topic of corporate governance and stakeholder international perspective. And I will have Dan. The stage is yours now, Dan. Thank you.
Well, thank you again to Chula and to the previous panel. This panel, as is explained on the program, is to look at stakeholderism from an international perspective. But perhaps the title was a bit misdescribed. Really what we are going to do is to try to look at it from an Asian perspective. And I'm going to lay out a few points to get the discussion going. And then we're going to have to go to Chen Yun first because he has a flight to catch. And because we're running late, he may not catch his flight. So out of that abundance of caution, I will go to him and then we will work down maybe the other direction. And I would ask each one of the speakers to introduce themselves, but you'll see I'm going to ask them to respond to a few things from my comments. So when we think, and this is really taking a step back from the excellent panel before us, giving details on sustainability and stakeholder governance in Thailand, what we thought we would do in this panel is take a step back and look at Asia. And maybe there's 3 points that I want to start out with to hopefully spark a very interesting and engaging discussion. And to make it engaging, we're going to give our comments, but after we give our comments, I will also open it up to the floor. And I hope there'll be some questions and engagement. The first comment that I have is that, and this very much aligns with the Asian Corporate Law Forum's mission, Asia has a different perspective, I think, on stakeholderism than is often talked about in the English language literature, and that is that stakeholderism is not a new idea in Asia. We see in Anglo-America there was a, dare I call it, a flirtation with stakeholderism over the past several years. But the United States and the United Kingdom have been very shareholder-centric for decades. And that is not the case in Asia. In fact, in Asia, we've had several jurisdictions that have taken stakeholder approaches for decades. Some for better. Of course, we have the Asian stories of the tiger economies, of the development of Japan as a very stakeholder-based oriented system after World War II. We have the emergence of China as a global superpower, and India has had a long history with stakeholderism. And so I think we have to come at this from a different starting point and realize that history does matter. And what does it mean within Asia to push towards more stakeholderism? And for that reason, I've asked each one of the speakers to give updates from their own jurisdictions within Asia, because Asia is incredibly diverse, about what they think is the most important sort of movement recently to do with stakeholderism in their own jurisdictions. The second point I wanted to raise, which I was happy that the panel before, I didn't hear Donald Trump's name once. He was alluded to, President Trump, in many of the speeches talking about exciting or interesting times. Yeah, but in all seriousness, yeah, for some countries, it's more than exciting. For some environmentalists, it's more than depressing. And so the question that I had when we met to discuss this prior to our session, we had a pre-meeting, and I was curious about the Trump effect, if I may call it that. Has there been, you know, every day when you pick up the newspaper, you read the headlines and it's something that Trump has said, and it bounces around all over the place and is sometimes hard to make sense out of. But one thing that is clear is whatever the flirtation was of the US with stakeholderism, and I don't believe it ever really moved that far from shareholderism, that's gone, right? That's gone. You see BlackRock, you see prominent law firms who you would think in the past, even perhaps you will start to see universities who would drive a stakeholder approach, pulling back for that. Again, there are various views as to whether that is good or bad. That's not the point that I'm bringing up. I'll use a great term from the last panel, which is a U-turn. Yeah, there has been a U-turn, okay? And the question is, in Asia, is there a U-turn because of the United States? Or is Asia going to continue along a different path that it has been taking for decades anyways, and this is just noise, right? So I thought that was an interesting thing that each one of our speakers could opine about in their own jurisdiction. And the last thing, again, that is important about our current era is, I think, again, for better or worse, we have moved from an era of globalization, where globalization was the key word that you have heard for a very long time, to an era where there is regionalization, or maybe in some parts of the world, even localization. And the question I have is, we're here at the Asia Corporate Law Forum in Thailand, and what about stakeholderism is regional? Is there anything Asian about stakeholderism going forward? As we move from globalization to regionalization, is there an answer if there's a void, if there's no longer a push from the IMF and the World Bank and these quote-unquote global organizations that were very heavily influenced, like the OECD, by an Anglo-American approach? Is there going to be an Asian regional response or answer? And it brought me to think that, in fact, in my home jurisdiction, Singapore, even before this recent sort of effect away from stakeholders in the United States, Singapore, not through a Singapore named organization, through an organization in Singapore called Stewardship Asia. And I stress the Asia because this is a Temasek foundation, but based in Singapore, but they called it Stewardship Asia. And Stewardship Asia passed a stewardship code that was based on stewardship for family firms. And I saw in Professor Kitty Pong's slides that he talked about family firms in Thailand. And indeed, throughout Asia, family firms are quite prominent in many jurisdictions. And Singapore passed this family code, and if you read it, it tries to promote stewardship from a stakeholder perspective in Asian firms. Again, they could have labeled it Stewardship Singapore, but Singapore chose to call it Stewardship Asia. And if you go on their webpage, they have an interesting small sort of mini commercial set in the background of a Japanese onsen ryokan, where they get the owners of one of the oldest continuous family businesses in Japan to talk about what that means in a Japanese context. Again, trying to develop some sort of Asian perspective on stewardship. So I guess that is my third point. Yeah. So again, to recap, I think there's a lot of value in the Asia Corporate Law Forum, and I think the value comes from getting a fresh voice, right? And seeing from an Asian perspective, getting updates on what's the most important. I'm curious about this recent Trump effect, which I think Singapore right now, as it is often very prudent and cautious, is sort of waiting and seeing. I don't think it's made too many movements as of yet. And then thinking about, and this is an add-on, what does it mean to talk about stakeholderism in Asia? So I hand the mic over now to Cheng Yun, and I'll give him the floor. He will actually have to leave the stage with my apologies that this is run late, and with my thanks again to him for joining us, even with his very tight schedule. Cheng Yun,
Thank you very much. It's such an honor to be here, to be on the panel. So sorry that I have to excuse myself immediately after this speech to catch my flight. So my name is Cheng Yun Sam. People in Australia call me CY, and you know that's because Australians are huge fans of acronyms. So previously I worked in Taiwan, live in Taiwan. So 19 months ago I moved to Australia. Therefore, I'm not quite sure whether I'm in the best position to address the Australian development. However, I would like to give it a try. So the way I see it, I think it's fair to say Australia's journey to stakeholderism has been taking off for around 30 years. the journey itself has been quite bumpy. Well, very recently, as Dem quite correctly mentioned, we probably also have been through such a turbulence in a way that we have no idea whether that might make the airplane to change course or even the destinations. So why did I say that? So the idea of stakeholderism or stakeholder theory was actually in Australian public policy debate in the 1990s. So over the past 30 years, on the market side, you see very clearly, especially ever since 2017, you see such a rise on the ESG-related shareholders resolutions. On the other hand, you also see from 2020 a rise on pay on climate proposal being raised by shareholders, proxy advisors in Australia's companies. So that's on the market side. And going back to the legal and regulatory framework, so there is one particular provision in the Corporations Act, which is Section 181, Subsection 1, that requires directors of Australian companies to act in the best interest of the corporation. What remains unclear is how do we interpret the meaning of the best interest of the corporation. Therefore, I think that provision doesn't, together with the court's interpretations, that doesn't prevent the directors to take into account stakeholders' interest. But that doesn't mean directors cannot think about those interests of stakeholders either. So I can walk you through the evolution of the corporate governance practice in Australia. So in Australia, we have this Australian Securities Exchange. And from time to time, every several years, the ASX will propose corporate governance principles and recommendations. So it's very interesting to see. So in the year of 2014, that was about the time when the third edition was published. At that time, we treat stakeholderism in a way that we should require directors and corporations to disclose exposure to environment risks and social harms. And that's it. But in the fourth edition, which was published in 2019, well, when you take a look at the term stakeholders, and you realize they emphasize two things. Number one, when forming the corporation's value, making sure you take into account your stakeholders. You must have a very reputable relationship with the stakeholder. On the other hand, well, when you engage your shareholders, you have to consider engaging stakeholders as part of that engagement program. So that was in 2019. So going back to the three questions you have, which I'm going to answer the second one. So very interesting, last year, the Essex Corporate Governance Council, they started a consultation for the fifth proposed edition of that principles and recommendation. That was in February 2024. Guess what? In that proposal, they came up with a new recommendation, which is specifically touches upon stakeholder relationship in a way that they require directors to take into account stakeholders' interests and also to have in place a process to manage relationship with stakeholders, or even taking into account human rights impact as well. But that was in the proposal. Then last week, so after 1 year of consultations, the Essex Corporate Council decided not to move forward with the fifth edition of the proposals. Well, their reason was they haven't reached a wider consensus over the proposal. But I highly suspect whether that might have anything to do with recent Trump's move. So what That's one of the response. And secondly, if you see the recent Trump's move and its interactions with corporations responding to the idea of sustainability, I can give you one example, which is, so there is a net zero banking alliance, which was established a few years ago. But I think this year, essentially all the 6 largest banks, they have decided to leave that alliance. All the Canadian banks leave. And last month, one Australian bank also chose to leave that alliance. So that's, I think that's remarkable. In a way, you see now corporations, they might have an incentive and motivation and legitimacy to say it's about time for us not to consider that much about non-shareholder stakeholders' interests. And going back to your final questions, I think very recently Australian promulgated a law, and that law took into effective on January 1st this year, which requires all the big financial institutions and big companies to prepare sustainability report, and that's a mandatory disclosure regime. So I'm quite uncertain to what extent that new requirement might, interplay with what I just mentioned with recent Trump's move. To your final questions, I'll be very brief. I have no idea what's the way moving forward for Asia. But I remember I know something. As an Asian myself, I think stakeholderism is in our genes. So it never goes away. Having said that, I'm so sorry that I couldn't be able to attend for the next 2 days conference. I actually co-authored a paper with Steve Korobus. So make sure all my colleagues grill Steve with all the questions you might have, which would eventually benefit our papers. So thank you very much.
So thank you, Cheng Yun. I don't want to make you miss your flight, but you've flown 7-8 hours to get here. So I just want to ask you one question, sure, because I'm so curious to hear from you, and thank you for this exceptionally interesting overview. You said, if I heard you correctly, that you're not sure or you don't know whether sort of this alliance falling apart with the banks and the U-turn on the corporate governance proposal that seemed to elevate stakeholderism to a higher level was because of Trump or not. What else do you think it could be from? Is this a movement or a feeling in the Australian business community? Is this a movement or feeling among the Australian public? Or is this a surprise to you and you can't really explain it? If it's just happening now, it makes me think there must have been something that drove them to first propose it, which would seem that it had some sort of widespread support. And now it seems like it's moving in the opposite direction. So I'd just be curious for your response on that very quickly before you leave.
Yes. Again, I'm not quite sure whether I'm in a good position to say this, but that doesn't surprise me at all. So, when Trump turns against the idea of EDI programs, the idea of ESG-related agenda, it doesn't surprise me if for some reasons, not just Australia or any other Asian countries, they might find some reasons not to put so much emphasis on sustainability agenda, simply because we all knew from the practical experiences, pursuing that agenda doesn't necessarily lead to profitability. So I think that gives everybody a wonderful excuse and legitimate reason not to do so, at least not in the next 4 years.
So thank you very much, and I'll let you catch your plane.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. So the final comment seemed to resonate with what we heard on the Thai panel, right? Where the industry speaker was suggesting that, maybe in practice, right, it's hard to maybe put stakeholderism and sustainability into effect. It's very tricky. And maybe this, what's going on with Trump makes people re-question, right, whether this can actually be profitable sustainability in the long run. But with that, I hand it over to Deng Feng from Peking University to talk about China.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I'm glad to have this opportunity to exchange my viewpoint about the Chinese corporate governance, especially on ESG's development with all of you. But first, I want to emphasize that this is my second time to visit Chula's Faculty of Law. So the last time is 20 years ago. So it's a wonderful memory for me. I indeed totally agree with you. There is a strong tradition among Asia people or Asia culture. So there is, we share very Confucian styles, stakeholderism. So I think in Confucian tradition, so the stakeholderism is a concentric model for all of us. So that's, I think, is kind of Asia, maybe not a correct word, Asia value or Asia tradition. So, but after we call the mainland China step into the communism, so there is a strong tendency influenced by the Marxism philosophy, so which emphasized on the property model on corporate. So the company or corporations are all deemed as the hand of the shareholder. So basically, China, the last 4 decades, took a very strong shareholder-centered developing model for corporate governance. But because of the Confucian value and our tradition, so in the name, the corporate social responsibility was easily adopted in the 2005 in company law. But it's only a declaiming article without any enforcement or remedy measures for those stakeholders. I think the result is easily to be found. Like, I'll give you 2 examples. One is American factory, I think produced by President Obama. And the second is the several months ago in Brazil, so a Chinese SOE company was held by the Brazil police to think they violated the workers, Chinese workers' human rights. So that's a typical cases. Those are typical cases for Chinese. In the name, we have a stakeholderism, but in fact, we are a very, very strong stockholderism. So that's our situation. But for good news, so last year, 2023, we updated our company law. So we use the ESG to substitute the corporate social responsibility. So in black letters, so we have a normative ESG right now, but in practice, it's a different story. So what the law said and what the law did is always different in China. In my perspective, from 2015, there is a big switch from the party's policy. Before that, Prime Minister Li Keqiang promotes the policy we call the delegating power and deregulating and the upgrade service for the government. But after that, now we use a policy called the combination with combination deregulation with supervision. So that's a big switch from 2015. That's the party's policy. From the market perspective, so there are two concepts comes out after 2016. One is piercing regulation, which means the regulatory agency must identify who is corporation's ultimate control shareholder. So that's the one strong policy. The second term we called the corporate compliance. So it's a very strange combination. First, the regulatory agency wanted to identify who is the ultimate responsible subject. Then the government asked those corporations to serve as policies, regulatory undertaker for those market transactions, maybe violating the stakeholder interest. So that's in the market. So I think it's not combined the two together. The stockholder is a strong reality, and in the name, the stakeholder is right, but so it's not corporate social responsibility. It's shareholders' social responsibility in China. So that's a very interesting key concept in China. And in the second level, in the social governance, I think from 2018, the government promotes a new program we called the social cooperative governance. Because as all of you already know, the President Xi is a fan of national security, including a very cool concept of called the economic security. So those corporations serve as an agent for social cooperative governance. So like big platform enterprise like Alibaba, like Tencent. So they must undertake the social responsibility to help the government to undertake some, the government functions to find the bad guy, report to the police, and do many works the government should do. So that's our situation right now. I think so. The stakeholder is much harder in China in current situation. So although in the name, the concept is accepted by the law, but in reality, it's a totally different story. So that's my observation. Yeah. So.
Thank you so much. I may just continue this trend with one or two follow-up questions for each person immediately. Okay. Yeah, your analysis is absolutely fascinating because I think, of course, China being the only other global true superpower aside from the United States now, I think a lot of people, if you read things like even the Chinese corporate governance code, right? You have this very strong stakeholder language in it. But what you've said is so fascinating to me because the reality on the ground, right, is you also have cases of, say, shareholder activism, and you have people expressing their rights, maybe from a very shareholder point of view.
Yeah.
And I just want to get your very quick thoughts on two things that have caught a lot of attention in the Western media. One is, of course, the President Xi so-called common prosperity campaign, right? And that seems to be something that would be quite stakeholderist in that, you have a common prosperity, doesn't sound like a shareholder point of view. And the other is the recent meeting of President Xi with a number of the tech billionaires, the DeepSeek founders and Jack Ma. And is this a reset? So when I see common prosperity, I think, okay, there maybe was a period when it's more stakeholder in this, but now it seems like maybe the competition that China is facing from the US and the pressures to keep its advantage with tech, is this going to force even the government to double down on maybe shareholderism because they know at the end of the day that they need to do this to make China globally competitive, which of course would benefit the party and would benefit China as a whole to be globally competitive.
Yeah, that's an excellent observation about our policies diverging. So that's good. Let me, maybe that's my personal perspective, only my personal observation. So I think I given one very important argued issue in current China. Last year, the government want to promulgated a new law called the Promoting Private Sector's Economy. You may be heard of it. So, but in the progress of, I'm taking part of those drafting process. In those drafting processes, so as you said, so the government maybe have a strong tendency to promote those big, but in government's perspective is advanced economy, enterprise, entrepreneurship. So they want to give them a much more special treatment in policies, in tax, in land providing, supplying, and something like that. But for those, normal SMEs, just, little entrepreneurs, small enterprises, the government used a new word we call the high standard market. So that's very different. So it's a divergence. Yes, I totally agree with your observation. This is a very likely result for the next few years.
Thank you very much. Now we move from one country of 1.4 billion to another country which is just a bit more people now, to India.
Marginally more.
Yes, so I give the floor to Arja to give us his perspective on stakeholderism in India and the Trump effect and anything else he wants to add. Yeah. So the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here at Chula. My first time visiting Thailand and Bangkok. Couldn't have asked for a better location. All right, so stakeholderism in India. Originally, stakeholderism in India was brought about by, one might argue, a lot of writings from Gandhi, right, where he extensively wrote about stewardship and how industry or industrialists could be considered as captains of society, right, and that there was an inherent responsibility upon these captains of industry or captains of society to take society alongside with them in their progress and in their growth. Post-independence, up until, I'd say, the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 90s, India sort of pursued a very socialist regime with a number of state-owned enterprises, much like China. Post-liberalization, of course, a lot of that has changed, right? So with socialism and state-owned enterprises, there was a huge thrust on governance, not just for profitability, but also for the well-being of society at large. That has sort of eroded post the 90s, up until 2013. between the 1990s and 2013, of course, there were a bunch of voluntary guidelines on stakeholder protection, on stakeholder inclusion, but these again were voluntary and not necessarily black letter law. They were, however, still implemented in government-owned enterprises. But in 2013, of course, we had our New Companies Act, which brought about a number of changes to our black letter law. First amongst which was, I believe, the first and till now the only mandatory CSR law, which requires all companies of a certain size to set aside 2% of their net annual profits over the last 3 years for specified activities that count as CSR. These would include sanitation, education, infrastructure, gender equality, healthcare, or even donations to the Prime Minister's Relief Fund. For a while, this law was a little bit problematic because it required companies to either set aside this 2% or to explain, so a comply or explain approach, but not explain to the government, to explain to their own shareholders for a while. This has subsequently changed, and now companies have to explain to the government as to why they haven't complied. The 2013 Companies Act also puts directors in a bit of a quandary. So there's a particular provision in the 2013 Companies Act, section 166, subsection 2, that requires directors to act not just in the best interests of the company and its members, but also in the interests of employees, the local community, and the environment. And this sort of sets up a wonderfully ambiguous requirement on directors to pursue multiple goals at the same time, multiple goals that could often conflict, right? There are many issues with this particular provision, of course, not the least amongst which a lack of hierarchy between companies, shareholders, and other stakeholders. But more recently, and this is the update I wanted to share with everybody here, this is post-2023. Our securities regulator, the Securities Exchange Board of India, SEBI, has now mandated ESG disclosures starting from 2023. It started with the top 100 companies by market capitalization listed in India, and we're gradually increasing the number of companies that fall under this ESG reporting requirement. We call it the Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report, the BRSR. And the goal is to have the top 1,000 companies by market cap reporting on ESG parameters by 2027. All right. So these disclosures will include what kind of, for example, what percentage of the power consumption in a company comes from renewable sources, what's the gender balance on the board, what's the caste balance in terms of their workforce, and so on and so forth. So that's the sort of update that you were looking for. Now let's come to Trump, right? Much like the United States, India is also governed by a fairly right-wing, strongman character, right? And of course, these are my own personal opinions. Need not be, feel free to disagree. And there is a lot of admiration for Trump in India. Having said that, I think what is happening is Indian businesses have not been very influenced by the change in governance in the United States. It's business as usual. There has been a thrust upon making in India over the last 5-6 years, over the last 10 years, I'd say. There have been production-linked incentives that encourage Indian companies to build more or make more in India. Having said that, there are enough and more arguments to suggest that India's following its own sort of path or its own autochthony when it comes to stakeholder inclusion, right? Lastly, on the question of whether stakeholderism is ingrained in Asian culture. I would say, at least from the Indian perspective, the answer is yes. There have been enough and more family-run firms in India that have lasted for generations, which have traditionally taken into account stakeholder welfare as well as shareholder profitability. Having said that, however, there's been a slew of, I would say, somewhere close to about 150, 200 odd companies that have come up in the last, let's say, 10, 15 years that are traditionally not family driven. And what we're beginning to see is a change in the startup culture in India, which doesn't rely on families to run their businesses, which relies more on networks created, let's say, out of a university alumni or networks created while working in a particular organization and so on and so forth. So most of Indian unicorns that we're seeing right now, they're not really family-run firms. So my question for the future really is, if family-run firms have contributed to stakeholderism in India, are we going to see a change in the next 30, 40 years when non-family firms become larger and more influential? Dan?
So thank you. Another very fascinating update. And again, I just have a quick question for you. And I think this is why these country-specific updates are so important, because one thing sort of baffled me about your explanation about India. So on the one hand, you say you have a country that has at least, of course, India is huge and diverse, but there seems to be a lot of support for Trump. And on the other hand, you describe a place that is perhaps the most stakeholderist in Asia, with the requirement for directors to fulfill duties to the environment, community, and employees. And you have the mandatory CSR provision, which is 2%. So on the one hand, from an outsider's view, it seems like you have such a stakeholder, dare I say, socialist environment, and then you have the love for Trump. Yeah, I know those things are a bit hard for me to put together. So I'm just curious about that. But then I want to relate this to, what Deng Feng said before. Is it because these things in India, maybe you have this provision in the Companies Act, and you have the mandatory CSR, but in actual practice, you maybe don't have such a stakeholderist business climate. Maybe you have a more shareholder business climate. And maybe that's why they also like Trump, because Trump is relief for those people who want to break finally from the Gandhi-inspired stakeholderism. So I give you a chance to respond to that.
All right, so I do agree that things on the ground might be very, very different. In fact, there have been instances where companies have used their CSR funds not for pure stakeholder welfare, but for, let's say, advertising, for reputation building, for changing public perception, right? So that's one hurdle that we're yet to overcome. The second hurdle, of course, is the lack of enforcement of directors' duties towards stakeholders. And while the Companies Act does require directors to take into account the welfare of employees, local communities, and the environment, I find it very difficult to foresee an actionable claim made by employees against directors within this provision, right? So you're absolutely right, Dan. Enforceability is a problem, and how these laws are taken care of on the ground might be very, very different from what's actually written in the Companies Act. Dan?
Thank you. We now move on to Korea, which is, of course, has a soft spot in my heart, but is also incredibly interesting, between corporate governance escapades in K-pop companies to a political system which never ceases to surprise. Yeah? But in terms of sort of innovation and technology, and I remember one of the first times I went to Korea was in the Asian financial crisis. And at that time, it seemed like, Korea was on the brink of maybe falling apart. And of course, since that time, Korea has become, a champion in terms of people looking at innovation and development, but done this in a system with chaebol and very interesting background. So I'll leave it to June to talk to us about how stakeholderism has played out in the Korean environment. June.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. So my name is Jun Hyuk Jung. I'm from Seoul National University, and I'm also sitting as a non-standing commissioner at the Securities and Futures Commission, which is equivalent to the US SEC, but as a disclaimer, I'm speaking as my personal capacity as a law professor. So thank you for describing the short Korean, the Korean history in a very, very efficient way. So I'll be talking about 2 points. One would be how the ESG discussions has been changing recently, and the second one is about the amendment of our Korean Commercial Code, which is our corporate law, which looks like a big step to the shareholderism, which may be a little bit different from other jurisdictions. So starting with the ESG discussion in Korea, unlike China and India, who has a very big domestic market and a large population, I have the feeling that in some way we are sitting in the order of the number of population from China to Korea. We are a smaller country with a population of 50 million, and we are very dependent on international trade, which means that we are really listening to what others are doing. So as a long history, Korea has a long history of stakeholderism. For example, we have a very strong labor law. It is almost impossible to dismiss an employee without really some exceptional causes. And then ESG has been a boom in Korea also, let me say, since 2020. And it was also influenced by the Americans and Europeans. As you remember, there were the Business Roundtable's statement on corporate purpose in 2019, and then there were BlackRock and other big asset managers who are focusing on ESG issues and things like that. So there was the boom of ESG discussion in Korea. And on top of that, as I said, Korean companies are really exporting a lot of products and services abroad. So there were some example of receiving pressure from their supply chain, for example. So even though you don't care about ESG or stakeholderism issues, if your customer ask you to comply with certain ENS guidelines, that you need to follow that. So that was how the discussion about ESG has boomed in Korea, I would say until 2020 to 2023. But after that, we can notice a real decline in terms of ESG enthusiasm in the recent years. So the reason being is that there is a growing perception that the ES regulation is a big financial burden to the company, because you need to disclose all your ESG factors, sometimes to abide by the EU regulation. As you know, they have a non-EU standard in terms of sustainable disclosure and things like that. And there was a strong backlash from the industry about ESG regulation, even in Korea. So for example, we have adopted a voluntary sustainability disclosure regime already since 2013, but we still don't have a mandatory sustainability disclosure legislation based on the ISSB, IFRS standard. So that would be a very good example. And now that we have Trump, we are seeing a big slowing down in terms of ESG discussion, and even in EU, you have the omnibus package, simplification packages, which slowing down the adoption of ESG regulation. I feel like the Korean like industry and also the regulators are seeing maybe will slow down these ESG regulation that we are planning to adopt. So that's the situation of Korea. So to speak about the recent change of the commercial code, which is really, really interesting, and I think that that could be a big contrast from other jurisdictions, is that in our current law, it says that the directors owe duty of loyalty to the corporation. But there has been many cases where the right of minority shareholders were not taken good care of. So there was a big debate about how to protect minority shareholders and things like that. And some politicians listened to that discussions. And we recently passed a new law amending the existing commercial law that says that the directors have the duty of loyalty to the corporation and the shareholders. So it's still a little bit confusing what does corporation and shareholders means as in the case of India, because if there's any conflict between the two interests, then what would be prioritized and things like that. But anyway, it shows a big step toward shareholderism. But I won't stop here because it looks like a very shareholderism in its face, but in reality, it has some stakeholderism taste in it. And the reason being is that the number of retail investors in Korea has dramatically increased during the last few years. So now we have around 15 million Koreans who have at least one share in listed company. So 15 million maybe sounds like a small number for my two colleagues, but it's 1/3 of the Korean population. So it has become a political issue, as you can see. If you have 50 million voters who is not really happy with the corporate law, then like politicians listen to that, and that is the result that our corporate law has been changed. So I would say that taking care of 50 million shareholder sounds like something stakeholderism to me, and it's taking into account of social value. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
So again, another very fascinating analysis, and I just want to get your views on the last point that you made about retail investors. On the one hand, I agree with you. This could be sort of a stakeholder point of view, but the question is, who are these shareholders and what are they pushing for? Because Korea, as we know, and I pay more attention to the Singapore or to the Korean politics than Singapore, because Singapore politics is not that interesting, right? You sort of know it's a very steady, stable place. Korean politics is much more interesting. But Korea has obviously quite a divide, right? And what do you think the retail investor is going to do? Because you could imagine if you thought that most of sort of the conservative side of the spectrum are these retail, or at least if a larger portion are, with 1/3, obviously you're going to have a mix. But are they pushing for shareholder value? Are they interested to see the share price rise? Or are they using their retail investment to push for political issues to do with employment rights, gender equality, other social issues that may be prominent in Korea? Or is it just too difficult to tell at this point? I'm just curious what you think. On the one hand, it's sort of democratization, which is sort of stakeholder. On the other hand, if you have retail investors that just want to see share price rise, this could be a very shareholder point of view. If you have retail investors that are very politically connected, it could be very stakeholderist.
Yeah, this is indeed a very good point and very good observation. And when I attend international conference, I feel like I'm a constitutional law professor or maybe a K-pop specialist, because nobody asks me questions about corporate law, but they ask about political problems and what's happening with boys and girl groups in hostile M&A in Korea. But answering to your questions, actually the previous panel discussion was really interesting to me, because I understand that Thai Stock Exchange is also following the value of program, which is quite similar to the Korean one and also the Japanese one. And that says something to your question. So retail investors are usually very short-termed. They are not long-term investors. So there are also like proponents, supporters of the value program that we are doing in Korea, but also some critics of the value program because maybe it is focusing too much on short-termism, increase of dividend amount and things like that, and also the very rise of shareholder price. So it looks like the retail shareholders are really focusing on short-term return and short-term rise of the stock price. And while the controlling shareholder, they say that, oh, we look at more on long-term shareholder value, but that has been like that for many decades in Korea, but the result was not really successful for the past. So maybe we are doing a kind of like big experiment in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move, last but definitely not least, to Andrew Lin from Taiwan. And of course, Taiwan these days, with AI taking off, you can't, I think, not think about TSMC when you think about Taiwan as a country that who would have believed 4 or 5 decades ago that Taiwan would be creating things that, for instance, the United States itself can't create, right? That is quite an amazing feat. So I'm very curious to hear from Andrew about how this stakeholderism plays out in Taiwan and what some of the recent updates and his thoughts are. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I will try to answer your question first and follow by my introduction of Taiwan's stakeholderism, the evolution. Okay, so stakeholderism is not new, and it's new in Taiwan. What I say is that just like June say in Korea, we already have a lot of law for creditor protection in civil act, civil law, civil code, and for company act, and so on. And then we have also very strong labor law and environmental law. Okay, so for those kind of issues are already being taken care of maybe since 1980s at least, 80s, 90s, and after 2000. So we've seen a lot of these things already in the law. And so what I would like to say is Taiwan is trying to follow the international standard, international development. Okay, but even so, for creating the international standard, for example, like the climate change, global warming issues, the Kyoto Protocol, Paris Agreement, and so on. Even with that, but there are disagreements among the members, and so I believe each country is trying to follow the right direction with its own pace. But Taiwan is trying to move in faster, trying to catch up with the development of the international standard. Okay, so stakeholderism, not new, but it's new in the corporate law. And also, for example, for the definition of corporate governance, at the very beginning in Taiwan, corporate governance means how to maximize the best interest of shareholders. And then it was modified, says, in addition to maximize the best interest of shareholders, we also need to take care of the stakeholders. So stakeholders is those other interested parties, outside shareholders. So they are separate. So I would like to put, I don't know whether any of you play golf or tennis. So left foot and right foot. So you need to balance. You put the weights on different foot. Best of all, balance. But stakeholders, a lot of stakeholders on one foot, but shareholders on the other foot. And so if you play golf, particularly you are chipping. They are saying you have to put 90% of your weight on your left foot, which is shareholders. So even though you are moving your weights while you are upswing and downswing, but you always need to emphasize on your left foot. Okay, so shareholders' interest is always the center for a company to pursue when they operate. Okay, so for the next maybe 10, 20 years, Taiwan will still follow the right direction if that is good for human being, good for society, good for the environment. So that would be what I would like to say, even with Trump's maybe strong suggestion to the other way. Okay, so for stakeholderism, in Taiwan, I'd like to divide into three parts. One is policy, law, and regulation, and the second part is the response from corporations, and the third part is the holders, shareholders and stakeholders, how they respond. Okay, so for the policy, the government's policy is trying to follow international standards. So we have a Greenhouse Gas Emission Reduction Act, which was promulgated in 2013, 2015. And then 2023, it was changed. The name was changed to Climate Change Response Act. Okay, so in this act, Article 4 set 2050 as net zero year. So that was the long-term goal. And then also in Article 5, it says something to do with the interest of the stakeholders. It says that the company need to pay attention to the stakeholders. So again, pursuing profit is one thing, but you also need to pay attention, notice the stakeholders' interest. Okay, so again, shareholders' interest it should be the center for corporation. Okay, so for doing this, the government also says in the Response Act, says if the shareholders actually raise a shareholder proposal related to sustainability topics, the company better include the shareholder proposal in the agenda of the shareholders meeting. So shareholders meeting, the shareholder proposal, you need to hold at least 1% to propose. So which means that usually shareholders will not propose any kind of proposal related to climate change or something like that. Government is doing that. Okay, so for last year, 2024, around 2,000 listed companies, only 10 companies has shareholders submit shareholder proposal. None of them was related to the stakeholderism. All related to shareholders' interest. Okay, so this is one thing. So the government is do a lot of things. So and then the carbon carbon exchange was also established but that was related to the environmental protection. So this is a government side, and we have self-regulators. Taiwan Stock Exchange is doing a lot of things in pushing corporate governance, stewardship code, sustainability report. So beginning from 2013, corporate social responsibility report, and now is the sustainability report. And so enforcing that now is compulsory requirement for listed companies. Not only by requiring the listed company to file the sustainability report, but also some stakeholder issues also need to be disclosed in the annual report. But by enforcing this, we also have a mechanism says that there need to be an assurance institution to certify the sustainability report to ensure the content was correct. Okay, so CPA and CPA firms are mainly the assurance institutions doing the certification of the correctness of the sustainability report. And companies usually are in a passive way. So company doing those things I just mentioned by following the law and the self-regulation. Okay, so a company, of course, they can do donation and take in any other measures, and of course, making disclosures in their reports. So shareholders and stakeholders, I already mentioned that shareholders' proposal is not actively involving the stakeholderism. So we have not seen any stakeholders trying to get the shares and become shareholders and using the venue of shareholders meeting and to post their claim in that forum. So 1% of shareholding, so it is not what they would like to do. So stakeholders, I would like to use some stakeholderism example, stakeholder activism. So some of the stakeholders, like the environmental group, like the labor group, they are trying to use some of the occasion. If some occasion or some events occurred, like recently we seen there are some cases related to workplace bullying, and also some of the environmental problems, pollutions and public nuisance cases. Then we will see the interest group. They are trying to elevate those kind of issues to the public. Okay, so those are the development and from different parts, the government, the self-regulators, the company, and shareholders and stakeholders. So that was my introduction. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Andrew. Again, a super fascinating analysis. We have very limited time left, and I just want to bring up a point that is maybe unique to Taiwan that I think people will have great interest, not just here, but also this is, of course, going to go up on the ECGI page. How much of the regular corporate governance do you think applies to the TSMC and that industry, in the sense that I see another stakeholder in Taiwan, which is Taiwan itself, right? For that industry, it is not just a business. It's not just about making money, but of course it is Taiwan's sort of crown jewel in a way. And how is that dealt with? Do you think that those companies have a similar sort of idea about how they're run? Or are they run of sort of this national treasure institution? Because in fact, I think probably most people would agree that they are for Taiwan, right? They're sort of part of Taiwan's current existence. And so I'm just curious, do you see from, if we think of this shareholder, stakeholder, the stakeholder is almost the jurisdiction itself, right? It's Taiwan itself. And it's not really shareholder value, or are those things aligned? And how does that work? Because there's going to be some very difficult choices for those companies as to what to do to just increase their profits in the short term may lead to something which is maybe divergent from Taiwan's political interests at the end of the day. So I'm just curious how you would respond to that.
I also have the curiosity like you have. My answer to that, of course, I cannot represent the government or anyone in Taiwan to respond to these questions. But from my personal observation is that the government, so maybe one of the interests that, like you mentioned, is like semiconductor industry or any other industry that is considered to be a national treasures. So it cannot be stored by other country. So there's a government policy, of course, in trying to negotiate, of course, with the company. But whether Taiwan can actually prohibit the company from doing anything, particularly, for example, like Trump government is asking Taiwan Semiconductor to invest. To invest, this is just investment, seems nothing, but it is possible that the industry, the secret of this industry can be moved to another country. So what is actually left in the country, and this will be something to do with not only the secret, the trade secret, the patent, but also has something to do with the GDP and the employment issues, and of course, then investment. So complicated. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I said to you that I would open the floor to questions, but I perhaps lied a bit because we don't have very much time. Yeah. But if there is one or two burning questions, I will take it. If I see a hand shoot up very quickly. But if not, yeah, I apologize in that the group was so interesting that I couldn't hold myself back from asking many questions. So I just really want to thank the group for a fascinating discussion. And I think I'm not going to try to draw one common point. I think, in fact, what this shows is that the ground level expertise in each one of these incredibly important jurisdictions is what is needed to understand it on its own terms. And I think we really got that expertise today. So I thank the panel very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the final note before we end our public forum today, for those of you who wish to continue networking and to have dinner, we will gather again in this room at 5:30. Before that, you can take a rest and walk around our faculties, and they will set up the room for the dinner. And I hope that we will see you guys again during the dinner and to share conversation and to keep continuing the networking as well.